We are all prone to error by receiving and relaying misinformation or inadvertence. We all make mistakes. The problem is when we refer to these discrepancies as a metaphysical occurrence rather than recognize the error. Spelling and grammar especially are vulnerable, and especially in an era where technology wasn't our safety net. Although, even with technology, spell check, etc., ever notice spelling and grammar errors continue to persist? But spelling error is ultimately a misnomer because that suggests a sporadic error. No, it is more than just a spelling mistake. It is a systematic perceptual error revealing as apparent spelling mistakes. When you look through the historical archives as a whole, in other words, in a more balanced manner, you soon realize certain errors happen quite often. Apart from ontological inconsistency I've mentioned earlier, there is also the practical issue in advent of error, a high likelihood of error at that, making comparisons dicey at best. In the case of using a celebrity name to illustrate magical name change due to Mandela effect, you are prone to error by using these old publications with spelling mistakes. Let's look at the case of Suzanne Somers, for example, since the spelling of her last name is considered another victim of this effect. In fact, a particular newspaper clipping from the Alcala Star Banner newspaper dated February 25, 1980 was used in a video by a Mandela Effect follower. This individual shows that Suzanne Somers' name used to be spelled S-O-M-M-E-R-S because that's how it was spelled in this old newspaper. But here's the best part. Just like in the Berenstain articles, the fact that there is the correct spelling right there in the same exact article with the spelling error, not a magical change, plainly and simply demonstrates human oversight and absolutely nothing more. Right there in the same article, you can see the author flip-flops on their diligence and putting together the facts correctly. Under the picture of Suzanne Somers, that is to the left of the title and body of the article, the caption reads, Suzanne Somers with 2 M's in scene from movie. But throughout the entire body of the article, her name is spelled correctly with 1 M. The believer, in haste to prove the Mandela effect true, conjured so-called evidence that clearly refutes what he thinks he's proving. The funny thing is, this individual even admits to seeing this plain mistake, but it does not occur to them to pull back and think, maybe this is just a big, exaggerated, and emotional response to something easily explained. Here's more of the ever-so-revealing simultaneous evidence. Only the human hand would correctly write or type SOMERS for the title in majority of the article, but then botch the spelling in said article, like this one from 1979. And again, the title reads SOMMERS, while the body says SOMERS twice. Another 1982 article presenting the same mistake. In this article, they utilized a play on words, incidentally a word that I will also use as comparison. The word they played on was summer, as in the season, and by doing so, they spelled her name S-O-M-M-E-R incorrectly. Now, as you can see, they spell her name correctly, and also repeat the play on words from the title, but this time it is correct. So, rather than Summers less with 2 M's, they spell it with 1 M. Here's one a decade later from 1990 with the error still going strong. The article and title say Summers with 1 M, but the caption is incorrectly spelled as Summers with 2 M's. There are many more of these examples. One should note that there is also a plethora of articles in the archives throughout the decades where there is no pattern or chronology to how Suzanne Somers' name was spelled. In other words, even if some articles did not contain the same body simultaneous error, it was sometimes solely spelled correctly, sometimes solely incorrectly, but without any logical chronology, just plain gaffes. Now, as mentioned, we aren't going to acknowledge this as a true spelling error. I maintain that there was a specific reason her name was misspelled often. Unearthing that reason reveals to us the systematic perceptual error, a subtle subconscious crossover that is quite often overlooked. First, consider the habit of spelling or seeing similar words. In this case, the word summer, as in the season. Because of the two M's, we naturally think Suzanne Somers should also be with two M's. And of course, through pronunciation, they're identical. I think Donna Summer's presence added to the conflation. She spells it S-U-M-M-E-R-S. Also, there was another prominent actor during an era where Suzanne Somers was fairly active, from the late 70s, mostly due to the sitcom Three's Company. Around the same time, a popular show, Bionic Woman, featured Lindsay Wagner, playing a fictional yet iconic character by the name of Jamie Somers, S-O-M-M-E-R-S. I have little doubt a popular name ever present in popular entertainment didn't affect the perception of journalists and TV viewers alike of another popular name, belonging to, not coincidentally, what was widely accepted as two blonde heartthrobs of an era. These names likely melded in memory. Incidentally, if a Mandela Effect believer were to stumble upon Suzanne Somers' picture with the name Suzanne Marie Mahoney instead, would they also think reality shifted? No? Oh, there's a reasonable explanation. Somers is actually the name of her ex-husband, and she simply decides to keep it. Something else to consider is the glossing over detail, even something as simple as a name. I have some good experience and some education in not just music but music business and the intellectual property protocols. Things like music publication rights, copyrights, trademarks, they have to be administratively handled. An artist, creator, or inventor can handle this themselves, although trademark is usually better handled with an attorney so nothing is missed. But often, and especially so with successful or busy individuals, others handle administrative duties such as filing trademark and patents. This would be a representative of said person, as seen here. An attorney or corporation handles Somers' trademarks. Knowing a third party handled it, you have to expect some error or misunderstanding or unforeseen reason that the spelling of a word, but especially a surname, is at some juncture not correct. Not always, but it will happen, as we have seen with articles. So this shows a few things. Number one, the filing date of around 1999, which reasonably could indicate the organization and preparation anywhere between 98 to 99, maybe even 97. We can't know exactly. Number two, the title of the book is registered Suzanne Somers with two M's. It is incorrectly spelled as opposed to something more memorialized for public consumption like a book, where it's possible that stringency in quality control is much more probable. Still, never 100%. The print of the actual book is S-O-M-E-R-S, while the copyright shows the incorrect spelling. Number three, the trademark file above essentially contains the same date and period of the copyright. It is highly likely that two different people filed those forms. Even in the event the same person filed the forms, it still comes across as a gaffe. The fact that they completely coincide in their timing shows that it's a mistake. Then there's this. We get more simultaneous evidence. Not only does that claim show the same date of when both Somers and the incorrect spelling were used, but shows their use in the same instance. Although the other claims hint to it, this does it in one fell swoop. What happened there? Or the so-called residual and parallel reality confused with which to settle with? Nonsense. Humoring for a moment the idea of parallel universes, it would then follow realities would have to be parallel, not simultaneous, specifically implicating objects representing those given realities. The true explanation for human error is, if you notice where it says basis of claim, that indicates related work to the main work of registration. In other words, a third party of a second party involved in the creation of the book registered that copyright claim. Talk about upping the chance for error. Here's another instance of post-official publication filing work of Somers showing the incorrect spelling by a third party, in this case the publication. As this recordation was done in 2002, it continues illustrating lack of assiduity we are all guilty of time to time. Because there are previous recordations of the same body of work, probably without the publisher involved, and precede the 2002 error of her name, it's another good example of the sporadic and casual nature of human error. This is from 1997. These true paper trails suggest the misspelling is seen before and after official memorialized publications such as one of her books, and further without chronology. There is no convergent point to show a supposed reality shift. It is a mishmash of both instances of the name on the same medium, also separate instances but without chronology, and with several hands involved in the production of intellectual property, increasing chances of error. What's important among these insignificant paper trails of blunder are the volume of copyright claims filed for the correct spelling, Somers. Now this is sobering. We are talking 210 entries of correct registrations for her involved works, and that's just a basic search. Whatever those few errors were, pale in comparison. Stacked up against this mammoth of records truly shows how some blunders casually slip through the cracks, but that's all in all, the records reflect her actual name, Somers. Not to mention, as we discussed, shrewd businesses and business people must at times indemnify themselves with trending information even if it is wrong. It could mean registering of that varied incorrect information through copyright, more likely, trademark, less likely because of the expense, or URL redirects, highly probable if there's enough interest, and possibly corporations. It's quite possible those entries were made for that very purpose. As it turns out, redirects once again lend us an answer. They imply the alternate spelling is not a secret, not a parallel reality, but for whichever reasons, as discussed, Somers and her representation are well aware, and with precaution have safeguarded the incorrect spelling, SOMMERS, in this URL. This incorrect URL redirects you to her official site with the correct spelling, SOMERS. Clearly, this tells us again that the involved parties are conscious of the misunderstanding and error, countering it with preemptive measures. There was never a magical change in reality. Ignoring implication and examining only one-sided evidence creates the perception of something unreal. But in truth, it's more humans making more frivolous mistakes or intentional commercial decisions.